demonic angel. Today's just going to be a tarot card. I'll still do a Goetia video coming up real soon. I think I'll probably preface that, I guess, by sharing some of my notes and thoughts with the Duchess Boone, and then I do that. So, in the meantime, until then, I'm just gonna finish up some homework. So I thought a tarot would be a little bit easier to jump on and do. We have the moon now. As of recording this, last night was the full moon. But that energy is still there. I'm still going to get to see the moon rise, and I'm going to, of course it's a big event for me. So we have the first thing I'll point out is that the sun and the moon is inside of the sun. That is because that all the light from the moon is a reflection of the light from the sun. And it's just a reminder that even though things are, in this sense, dark or obscure, any kind of meaning that way, there is still light. There's always light in the darkness, and there's always darkness in the light. They're just the polarities of the same force. So, it's yin and yang. It's also that reminder of balance, right? The moon is complete recessive feminine energy, and the sun, in many representations, is completely logical, masculine. But they're the yin and yang. They're the polarities of each other. Then we have the little stone pillars that we've seen in the High Priestess before. That is the passing through the gates. Just like in traditional Christianity, where people pass through the gates if they're admitted to heaven, or other ideas of the gates of hell, that it's this transition from living to the dead. It's also the transition, though, from conscious to the subconscious mind. At night, my take on this is that, things aren't always as they appear in this logical, linear type of thinking. At night, my take on it is that we all leave our bodies and astral project at night. Most people don't remember their dreams, or obviously looking at it this way, but I do. I think that it's basically like you're leaving your body and you're exploring the subconscious mind. So you go through the gates, and it's looking at the combination of fantasy, stress, chemicals. If you're not getting enough melatonin or serotonin, that's going to manifest, in these ways at night. Because all of the things that we repress are, manifesting in this at night. So it's just, you're going through the gates. But it's also this initiation thing. So at night, when you're thinking about, because the moon is a great card because there's so much to say. There's not just like, here's upright and here's reversed interpretations. Just, I'm going to throw things out there that I think about this card, and then you apply which interpretations make the most sense for you in your readings. But we've got you go through the gates and you're facing your fears, because the things we repress and all that stuff, sometimes when we have nightmares, we're facing or bringing to light our fears. So it's manifesting in the conscious mind, and then we can look at it, and the purpose would be to process it and then reintegrate it in this other way that might be more adaptive than maladaptive. So we also have the little scorpion coming out of the water. And of course, Scorpios are a water element. Just the emotional waters, because the ways that all these feelings, this is recessive, emotional, feminine energy, and the acknowledgement of the emotional, that we all kind of have to suppress a little bit, because there's not so many direct outlets for it in our lives, generally. But it still has to find that way. And the most common outlet that it has is at night when you sleep. Now, on either side of the little path, we've got a dog and a wolf. A dog is obviously a modern domesticated descendant of a wolf. So it's kind of the wild and tame aspects of the mind, mimicking the yin and yang. So this is like, we can't just have the sun. We can't just have logic. It needs to be balanced with emotions, with intuition, with dreams, and with nightmares too, because it has to be examined. So we need this. The wolf, it is a primal kind of figure, and the domesticated dog is kind of almost a symbol for modern day sort of life. Now, all three are transfixed basically by the moon. The moon is clearly affecting these three, and they're just acting animalistic towards it. You can look this up, but every layer of our brain, when I say layer, I mean the different functions. It's just, they're not going away. They're only adding. And the brain, as far as evolution goes, the right hemisphere for, let's say, I don't know exactly, what was it, 2,000 to 5,000 years, that kind of more develops. Then the left hemisphere of the brain will work on developing in the human brain, like you look at it physically. But the layers, the beginning layers, they don't go away. The shapes of our skulls have changed, but the functions and the primal stuff and instincts, they don't go away just because we're modern. They just get built on. And of course, the newest thing is the frontal lobe, controlling things like impulses and decision making. Relations of space and time are a little bit behind that, but pretty closely related. So no matter how much humans advance, there's always going to be a primal layer, recessive layer of our minds. Biologically, we see it in our brains, because it's only going to get added on to, it doesn't just go away. It gets built on. But we're always going to be affected by the moon. The people, and of course you people might think that this is funny, but the people I know who don't give a shit about the occult and astrology, they are the most affected by it. There'll be some kind of retrograde or whatever, and I don't say anything, of course, to them, because they wouldn't even know what I'm talking about. But they're the definition of this stuff, because obviously the more you consciously look at this, the more you can really understand it, and laugh about the way that the moon and astrology in general really affects us. And they're because they kind of repress this sort of understanding, they really kind of are examples that stand out of the just the repressed energy. So that's kind of funny, but I definitely think that upright, this is psychic. This can be a woman menstruating, and during menstruation there's a lot of heightened dreams and psychic powers. I experienced that. That heightened feminine energy, so you're, connected to the high priestess who's also fertile. The fertileness of the subconscious recessive mind. Recessive meaning being open. So the more open you are to all the different possibilities and realities, the more you're aware of them and can choose how you integrate that energy into your being. If you're not aware of it, you don't get to choose how it gets integrated unless you end up having addiction or anger issues and it gets to that point where you're kind of forced to face it. But this is just naturally being able to explore all these different understanding in this. I mean, for example, I believe that all this stuff, energy and dead people are on the astral plane. The astral plane being both an altered state of consciousness and different dimension. I see that other reality. But I also see, I'm balanced. It's upright, balanced by the sun, balanced by logic. This is a good balance. So to truly open that up to being recessive. And then it's a wonderful thing. It's cleansing, and then you get to choose that when you examine, you choose how you want things to be integrated for you. This is also things like people do associate this with shadiness, bad behavior, addiction, illegal behavior, things like that, because the moon is full of secrets. I think there's a pagan saying like, the sun sees me or something, but the moon knows all my secrets. That's true. This is, it's kind of like, because people have problems and then they seek the escapism, and that manifests in addiction and bad, impulsive, negative, aggressive, whatever behaviors. Because emotions always have to have a manifestation. I acknowledge that, and then I have a little bit more control over the way that is going to manifest. But whatever you want to believe or do not believe, emotions need manifestation. Reversed, this is one interpretation, is that this is somebody who is too lost in the fantasies, that they don't really pay so much attention to normal life. This could also be somebody who is addicted to something like porn, or that it's just fantasy that is consuming, that's gone wrong, and that it costs people relationships. Because let's say somebody does watch, as I mentioned, porn or whatever, then they are lost in that, and might transfer those expectations to dating and think that that's really how, like, let's say dating is going to be. But those are actors, and so it's not, it doesn't translate in real life very well. But you could pick any kind of thing like that, and it's just this negative way that is. It's basically a fantasy is an escapism. So another thing would be not acknowledging or balancing the recessive feminine energies of oneself. So let's say somebody's spirit guides are ancestors are trying to talk to them, and they are going to ignore all the warnings. If they opened up their mind just a little bit, then they could receive some of these messages. They could be more compassionate and a little bit balanced or cleansed, healed. But instead, they just zero in on cultural reality, let's say, what we're presented with, and that's all they see. So it's out of balance in that way. Too high, so moon energy is too high because it's fantasy that's morphed into escapism, or it's too low where there's people don't see a value in the emotional, or they don't understand that. As people like to say to me sometimes, I don't believe in this emotional stuff, so it doesn't matter. But it's going to manifest for you no matter what. So yeah, I hope you got something out of this. I think my light here died on me halfway through, so sorry about that. I will fix it next video, so stay tuned.